We're grateful that you've joined us this afternoon. We're at the Southern Baptist Convention 2018 annual meeting here in Dallas, Texas. And this afternoon we're having a great conversation about the role of a Baptist university in the life of a local church, role of Christian liberal arts education in the life of a local church. And I can't think of a better panel to join me this afternoon. Just to my left is Dr. David Dockery, who really needs no introduction. He's the president of Trinity International University, Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, and for a number of years was president of Union University, an incredible academic leader, a proponent of Christian education, internationally known for this, and so we're delighted to have him on our panel. Just immediately to the left of Dr. Dockery is Dr. Susan DeWoody, who is the Dean of the College of Graduate and Professional Studies at Oklahoma Baptist University, has extensive experience in higher education, and currently serves as the Interim Vice President of Academic Administration at Oklahoma Baptist University. And then finally, immediately to the left of her is Dr. David Whitlock, who is the President of Oklahoma Baptist University, and I get to serve with him as the Dean of the Hobbs College for Theology and Ministry at Oklahoma Baptist University. So it was a great time to be with you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to go ahead and kick off the discussion. Dr. Whitlock, especially with you, you went to OU, I believe, and you had just a non-Christian undergraduate education. And so from your perspective, what's the distinctive advantage of having a distinctively Christian undergraduate education?
So I actually did my undergraduate at a regional university, Southeastern Oklahoma State University, then my graduate program at the University of Oklahoma. But yes, I did a non-traditional path into ministry, did an undergraduate degree in chemistry, and then a master's and MBA program, and then my PhD at OU. But after that, surrendered to ministry, bivocational ministry. The first thing I did was to enroll at OBU in what was then called the Ministry Training Institute. Actually got within 7 classes of finishing my bachelor's degree at OBU when I entered Christian higher education as a faculty member and academic dean and moved to Missouri. I did that because I realized that in ministry I did not have the appropriate training and background, and found it to be both extremely enriching and rewarding and necessary for academic, found it necessary to have some academic training in ministry. But I also discovered something else powerful, both then and then becoming an employee of a Baptist college, and that is the profound difference in the model. Most universities that are secular have lost the uni completely. Their wide diversity that has no unifying concept at all anymore. And within Christian higher education, Baptist specifically within Baptist higher education, we still have that unifying. And it's not just in liberal arts, it's distinctively Christian liberal arts that unifies the entirety of the curriculum. And it makes us particularly strong and particularly successful even in our academic side of the house. But that unifying principle is our common faith in Jesus Christ, and that provides the unifying ideal for all of our education. It makes a complete difference. And of course, it was at that point that I began to discover the great Christian intellectual tradition and the writings of one David Dockery and his influence. In fact, almost anything you can ask me about the great Christian intellectual tradition and the integration of faith is going to be echoes of Dr. Dockery's writings, so I almost hesitate to say anything more. You might as well just go to the original source.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Dockery, what is the distinctive advantage of being at a Christian liberal arts university or having a Christian education at one of our Baptist universities?
Well, I think it's an incredible advantage for students, those particularly who are followers of the Lord Jesus Christ, who have grown up in the church or have some connection to the church, to have their faith nurtured, even as they encounter the great ideas of history and get pressed into the issues of today. Baptist colleges are not a retreat from engaging these hard questions and these tough issues. The difference is we come at it from a perspective that says all knowledge, all wisdom, all truth has its source in God. And as Dr. Whitlock has said, it is because Jesus Christ holds all things together, Colossians 1:15 through 17, that there is such a thing as a unity of knowledge. And therefore, whatever discipline one is engaging, English, economics, business, biology, across the board, there is a way in which the Christian faith speaks to that issue. And this is a way of discipleship. It's a way of intellectual discipleship, of Christian formation, of worldview formation that allows one then to, upon graduation, to enter the marketplace and do so in a way that provides salt and light for that marketplace. Enter the church, whether as a lay leader or a ministerial leader, and make a difference for the cause of Christ. A Baptist college is not a church. That's an important distinction that we need to clarify. Yet, a Baptist college is the academic arm of the church, and there can be no disjunction between the two. It might sound strange at the Southern Baptist Convention to call upon the former Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, but John Paul II put out an important letter several years ago called Ex Corde Ecclesia, the cord of the church between the college. And it provides theological grounding for the school, and the school in turn provides the intellectual underpinning for the church to be able to engage the culture and to think Christianly about life and the kind of issues that people have to deal with in 2018.
So I'm the Dean of the Hobbs College for Theology and Ministry. I see about 200 kids coming into our college and wanting to be trained up to be the next generation of pastors and ministers, and I rejoice in that. One of the things that I love to see is when our students will come to me or come to one of our professors and say, hey, look, I just shared Christ with someone down my hall in my dorm room. They came to Christ, and then I got to share with their entire family. They came to Christ. That story is not hypothetical. That just happened this past semester. And so I love to see that. But one of the questions that often comes to me is, well, why don't you just go to a Bible college? If you have students who want to be trained up for ministry, why not just go to a Bible college or maybe a seminary or something like that? Do you have any wisdom to give us on that one?
I think the liberal arts foundation, the general ed core that's offered at a Baptist college helps one understand how to connect the dots in life and to recognize that you don't just compartmentalize Christianity or ministry over here on one side and then do life over here. These things are interconnected, and they're interconnected because of the incarnation of the Lord Jesus Christ. The very fact that we talk about God becoming man is a way that we want to bring Christian truth to bear upon the issues of today, upon the marketplace, in a somewhat incarnational sense. I don't want to make that word identical with the incarnation of Christ, but it is, there are parallels to that. So we draw upon the depths of Christology to form a philosophy of education that shapes a person, because we're not just about preparing ministers, we're about preparing men and women across the board to make a difference for the cause of Christ in whatever field they are called to. So we want to deliver information, we want to see character developed, we want to see lives transformed. So at Baptist education, we're about formation, about information, formation, and transformation. And most institutions, like the one that Dr. Whitlock referred to, stop at the information stage. But we do information and do that differently, then add the formation and transformation piece.
And Dr. DeWoody, if I can ask you, I love the transformation pieces you're talking about, because I know that's something that's near and dear to your heart. In fact, you open your home to students week in and week out, and you're active. You and your husband are college leaders at our church. And so I know this is something dear to your heart. Talk to me about the advantage of being at a distinctively Christian liberal arts university and the potential transformation that can happen in the lives of students from what you've experienced at OBU.
Oh, absolutely. So as you've said, we open our home really daily, and sometimes they stay a lot later than you expect them to. But what's happening in that living room or wherever that may be, that we're doing ministry and sharing our lives with those students, what we're seeing at OBU as a distinctly Christian institution is huge. And so our students are learning that calling is not just a pulpit ministry. Calling is a ministry that's much greater. And so you may be called to be a pastor, but we have a lot of students that are being called into many different mission fields and ministries, and OBU has so many majors that are equipping them to do that. And so I think just living life with those students and talking with them and really praying with them and thinking through what is God doing in your life. And I'm not the only one at OBU doing that. There are a lot of faculty and staff and administrators at OBU who are opening their homes and sharing their lives with students as well. And I think that's part of the impactful experience that students have there.
This is great conversation at a broad level. Let's get a little bit more granular in terms of detail in the life and ministry of a local church. Let's talk about the students who come into our schools, our university, from our churches. What does that handoff look like from your perspective as academic leaders? What is the handoff? What's the responsibility of our Baptist universities for receiving our children, our kids into these universities from our churches? What's our responsibility? What kind of weight should we hold to that really sacred trust?
It is a sacred trust. There is a sense in which we become the extension of the home. Not taking the role of the parents in any sense, but trying to support what they have learned in their home, in their church. We want to challenge their minds, push them to the limit, but at the same time nurture their minds, their hearts, their souls, so that they become men and women who love God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. What undergirds Baptist higher education is a vision to live out the Great Commandment. Jesus prioritized loving God supremely in every aspect of our lives. But very often we hear about loving God with our hearts, but particularly in our context, in a Baptist institution, we want to love God also with our minds. What the Apostle Paul says in 2 Corinthians 10:5, to take every thought captive to Christ. And so that's how the connection takes place with families, church, with their experience, with their background, and brings an education like one gets at OBU into a reality and into becoming a partner with the churches and with the Baptist world.
And there's a side here that we need to explore just a little bit. We've talked about receiving the churches, students from these churches. Let's talk about the other side when we talk about when the students leave these universities and go back into communities and go back into their, different parts where God takes them in the world. Dr. Whitlock, you spend a lot of time talking to students who have graduated from institutions like OBU, and you get to hear their stories. And a lot of times it's these stories of faithfulness, stories where you think, oh my goodness, we've had a part to play in this journey to where God is now placing these folks all over the world. Can you talk a little bit about that and the responsibility of a university like OBU or Trinity International University in placing students as missionaries, in a sense, in the world?
Sure, and I would pick up on what Dr. Dockery said in terms of that being a great commandment and a great commission university, and it's that concept of stewardship. We have a great sacred responsibility, but it's a sacred stewardship, and that story that is the OBU story continues. That transformation of students' lives continues and multiplies when we send them out. And forgive me, we could take up the rest of the conference here just telling stories of how students have then left Bison Hill and gone out and continued that transformational story as they've ministered and continued the ministry of OBU and people like yourself and Susan, and replicated your ministries over in the lives of thousands of other students. It's the story of people like Bill Pogue, who as a graduate went out and set the record for the most amount of time spent in space when he piloted Skylab 4. And then came back and faithfully served Christ as a layman in his church for years and years and years. It's the story of Sunday Ofadulu, who watched several members of his family, all of his brothers, die of sickle cell anemia in Africa, and decided that he wanted in the 50s to come to the United States and study and find a cure for that deadly disease. And found a university that would accept him, and it was OBU. And he finished in 3 years and went on and studied medicine and completed his doctorate and holds the patent for the cure and treatment of sickle cell anemia, and has continued to serve faithfully the Lord as a layman in his church. And that story I can repeat over and over. We could be here all day of telling story after story of young men and women who came to OBU and whose lives were transformed, and then who went out and served on the mission field for the cause of Christ, in the field of medicine for the cause of Christ, in the field of education, in the field of the arts, in the field of law, in nursing, and the list goes on, who have fulfilled God's purpose in their lives, and who spread the gospel using the platform, back to what Dr. Dockery said, because those pioneers in 1906 who envisioned OBU and who founded it in 1910 didn't see the need for another Bible college, but saw the need for a coeducational, liberal arts, 4-year university that would someday even have a graduate school from the very beginning, and had that vision. Those pioneers in the early 1900s who envisioned a place that would impact all of society, and that work continues today.
Yeah, I'm reminded of that quote by the Dutch theologian who says there's not one square inch over the whole of God's good creation where Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not say mine. Yes. And I love that.
Yes.
And that's beautiful, and that's what we want to foster in a liberal arts university context, is the lordship of Christ in all things. And of course that happens at the undergraduate, but you just mentioned graduate as well. One of the things that sometimes we might forget is universities often have graduate opportunities. And I know Trinity International certainly has that through Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, internationally known for years for theological education. And I know, Susan, as the Dean of the College of Graduate Professional Studies, there's opportunities not just in theological education, but there are other opportunities where our graduates can make a lasting difference, oftentimes at executive management, executive leadership kinds of levels. And how does that play into the role of a Baptist Liberal Arts University in the life of a local church?
Absolutely. So I would say first and foremost, we have built our graduate college programs on the architecture of academic excellence that OBU has been long known for. And so with that academic excellence, we then began to figure out how do you continue to integrate the faith in all areas of knowledge. And so we have programs in business, and our Master of Business Administration, our MBA, specifically teaches to transformational leadership and integrates faith into all aspects of that MBA program. And that becomes important because obviously we are training and equipping folks to be not only in the mission field, but also to be out in corporations as their mission or ministry. And so that becomes important. We also do flexibility well because we know that once you go on beyond undergrad, you begin to take on additional responsibilities in life. And so the flexibility piece is key, while also maintaining the academic rigor necessary for a quality program. So we have our business program, we have a marriage and family therapy program, and what you'll hear through the constant thread through OBU's choice and graduate programs is we are literally continuing to equip saints to do ministry, and it's a very intentional thing that we do academically. And so in our marriage and family therapy program, we are training counselors to go out and impact marriages and families and children for the good of the gospel. And so we have that opportunity. We have recently started a clinic in our community Dockery in Shawnee, Oklahoma, which has a lot of need. And so once again, we have this place to pour out ministry through the students in our MFT program. And so it's a great opportunity for us there. We also, as Dr. Whitlock mentioned, we have undergraduate nursing that's been known for quite some time, and we've made the choice to scaffold above that and add on a graduate program. And so we have Master of Science in Nursing, specifically in nursing education, because we believe to continue to call and equip nurses to make a difference and a kingdom impact, then we have to have nurse educators out there teaching those nurses. And so we are training nurse educators at our institution as well. And then, last and certainly not least, Heath, is our Master of Arts in Christian Studies or Intercultural Studies. We have both of those, and those are framed for pastors and lay ministers that are out there working in churches. It's a flexible opportunity that will allow you to get a quality theological education from OBU, built and steeped in our traditions on Bison Hill. And so, I would challenge you and anyone else who might be interested in pursuing something like that to talk with us, because we really are about academic excellence and quality while integrating our faith into our programs of study.
Baptist University's local church. How should we begin to think about this? In a sentence or two, Dr. Dockery, could you leave us with some thoughts to consider and some things that we can take away with us?
I want to add a further thought to what Susan has said and remind everyone that at OBU, at Union, at the Baptist colleges that are represented here, about 90% of our students are not going into vocational ministry.
Right.
About 9 out of 10. And therefore, it is imperative that we find a way to connect the dots with and for these students, to help them learn how to think Christianly in their area, to think in Christian categories about business and law and nursing and education and every aspect of life. And we're not the first generation to do that. Sometimes we think it's just the bishops and the ministers who have done that in the past. And we can point to Justin Martyr and Irenaeus and Augustine in the early church, but there's also Clement of Alexandria, who was a layman, who was not a bishop, who was one of the most important Christian thinkers of his time. And then in the 20th century, someone like C.S. Lewis. And so throughout the history of the church, you can find this going on. And what we're trying to do is stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us and to connect the work of higher education with the church, not in two separate spheres, but bringing them together into a holistic framework in which the Christian faith has not only informs but bears upon every subject that is studied, every approach to education that is taken. And the end result are men and women who can serve Christ with a Christian worldview, putting on the lenses of Scripture and the Christian tradition in order to make a difference for the cause of Christ in both church and society. And it's imperative that we see that that we're preparing people for the church. We're partners with the church. We want to serve the church, but we are preparing people for church and society to make a difference for the cause of Christ.
Well, I can't think of a better way to close this time. Dr. Dockery, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. DeWoody, Dr. Whitlock, thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. Thanks to all of you who are watching wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much. We're going to have to take a break now because it's almost voting time for the SBC. So thank you much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.